Hi guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel for a new lesson video. And in today's lesson, What the Fill episode 8, we're going to be talking about triplet fills. I am super pumped on this lesson too because both of these triplet fills I found really enjoyable to learn and play and now perform and teach for you guys. I hope that you find them as enjoyable to play as I did. Both of the fills that we're going to be learning today I took from my collaboration with Jerod. I did do a collab with Jerod. It's posted on his channel currently. We did a joint cover of The Saw is the Law by Whitechapel. You can check that out at a direct link in the description of this video. Maybe hit that up, check out my performance of it, and come back to this to actually learn the fills. Now, before I go any further, I want to leave a huge thank you to all of the names on the screen right now. These are the names of the incredible people that support me on Patreon to really help make lesson videos like the one you're currently watching possible. So thank you so much to all of my patrons for your ongoing support. Now let's dive into the lesson. The first fill you're going to be learning today looks like this. This fill is performed at the tempo of 230 beats per minute in the time signature of 4/4. Just before I get you guys playing along with me in time to this fill, I'm first going to take you through the sticking of the fill. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go right on one of the rack toms. If you only have one rack tom, just do it on your rack tom. But I have two rack toms in this configuration for this fill. So I'm going to put a right on my second mid tom, and I'm going to put a left on the snare drum. The snare drum doesn't have to be ghost noted, but I suggest that you definitely play it at a dynamic that is lower than the accent that you're going to hit that rack tom with. So we're going to go right really hard on rack tom, left on snare, right on snare, and then left on the first rack tom. That looks like this. Now the next thing we're gonna do is just two quick notes. So we're gonna put another sort of ghosted, but not really ghosted, just like lower dynamic stroke, right hand on snare drum, followed by a left hand on hi-hat all by itself. That looks like this. And to finish off this fill, the last four notes are gonna look like this. We're gonna go right on floor tom, then I'm gonna put a right foot on kick drum, and then I'm gonna go left, right on snare drum, finishing with the right hand on the snare drum, just before I hit the crash cymbal. So the last four notes inside of the sort of like the tom section of the fill, it's gonna look like this. Now we've got a little bit of cymbal work to carry us back into the groove. So now we're gonna go left crash, left crash, and then I'm gonna put in unison my snare drum and china together. And that sums up the sticking. Now that you've seen the sticking, it's time for you to pick up your sticks and get playing along with me. I'm gonna take you through this fill very slow and gradually work your way up to 230 beats per minute. The first tempo we're gonna hit is gonna be 115 beats per minute. I'm gonna play it for you at 3 separate passes, giving you the best chance to pick this up and follow along. Here's that performed for you right now. So now that we've tackled that guy at 115, the next tempo we're gonna hit on our way up to 230 is gonna be 160. Now I know, jumping from 115 to 160 sounds like a huge jump in tempo, but it's really not, because although this song is technically 230 beats per minute, the time feel, playing it in halftime, has it feeling more like it's 115. And this is very common in the metal and metalcore scenes for bands to do. The reason why is because if you increase the tempo of the song up to like 230, then you can perform very fast blasts inside of 16th notes and not have to go all the way up to 32nd notes. Now I know a lot of you are probably asking yourself, wait, Wyatt, how do you know that? How do you know that it's not just 115 and that he is actually playing 32nd notes? Well, this can be really difficult to figure out if you don't personally drop the song into a DAW and sort of move the tempos around and make sure everything's lining up with the bars. I had to do that when I'm learning this song, of course, and recording it. And when I did that, I discovered that this song has minor BPM tempo changes throughout the entire song. This is another really common tactic that metal producers will use to make the fast part parts in metal tracks feel faster and the halftime parts feel slower. If you go from 235 in a blast down to 230, although it's only a 5 BPM difference, it really makes that halftime feel like it's hitting hard and the breakdown's coming in even harder than it really is. The majority of this song is 230, but there are two sections where it goes up to 235 and 233, and both of those tempo changes were used just as I described to make those sections feel either faster or more halftime. And lastly, the reason why I know that it's 230 and not 115 based on everything I just said is because when I put those tempo changes into my DAW, the numbers were round numbers. They were 200, 233, and 235. If you did the same thing with those same changes down at 115, then you would notice that you would have decimal points in your tempos to get it exact. And this is why my best guess is that this song is 230, not 115. Now, with all of that theory being said, excuse me, I know we usually just jump right into the next example pretty quickly, but now we're gonna hit it. So, as I mentioned, 160 beats per minute for the second 3 passes of this fill in episode 8 of What the Fill, perform for you now. Coming off 160 beats per minute, we're now gonna make a jump up to 200 beats per minute. And I know it sounds big, but I already explained why it's really not too daunting. So let's get into that now for another 3 passes at 200 beats per minute. Perfect, so on the screen for you right now are the timestamps for the tempos of 115, 160, and 200. You can jump back to those and rehearse this fill at those tempos. Make sure to get it nice and locked in before coming with me to the final tempo. We're now gonna make the jump up to 230 beats per minute. The final tempo of this fill, perform now. So there you have it, that's fill number 1 down. Now let's move on to the second fill that we're gonna be tackling in today's episode of What the Fill on Triplet Fills. The second fill actually occurs inside of the same section, it's just a later version of the section in the song. And because of that, there's some evolution to the section. We're gonna find a little bit of a different snare placement in some of the passes. You're also gonna know that the fill is longer than the first time through. Definitely gonna be adding in some additional notes and taking our time with this guy. So here's what it looks like, perform for you now. Just as we did with fill number 1, now that you've seen what it looks like, I'm gonna take you through the sticking. So the first thing we're gonna do for fill number 2 is we're gonna put a right on floor tom, followed by 2 ghost notes on the left hand on the snare drum. Looks like this right now. Following that, I'm gonna go right left on the kick drum. Now I'm gonna go right left on mid tom and then snare drum. Now we're gonna do another group of 2, right left on kick drum, followed by 4 notes. The first 2 are gonna be on effects cymbals. I use my right stack and my left splash or centered splash. So I'm gonna go right on stack, left on splash, then right on snare, left on snare. You can sort of sub this out for maybe hi-hat or any other cymbals that you have at your kit, or maybe you have a stack on the right and a splash in the center and you're good to go. So that looks like this now, that group of 4. Following that group of 4, we're gonna do another right left, 1, 2 on kick drum. Now I'm gonna perform a very, very common rock fill. It's just gonna be right on snare, left on rack tom, right on floor tom, left on floor tom. 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like this. Followed by another right, left, 1, 2 on kick. And then the final set of 4 notes is just gonna be right, left on snare drum. Now, just to get us out of the fill, the last thing we're gonna do is some more cymbal work. It's the same concept as we did with the first fill. We're gonna go left crash, left crash, and then a unison stroke on China and snare drum together. Boom. In the first fill, we concluded with putting our right hand on the right crash and then moving into the fill, putting notes on that right crash. This time around, we're just gonna keep our right hand on the right China and move back into the groove. Awesome, so now that you've seen the sticking, we're going to get you playing along with me. So I'm gonna hit the same tempos on our road to 230 as I did with the first fill because the tempos of both these fills are the same at 230. That being said, that means the first pass is gonna be at 150 minutes. Let's hit that now. Awesome, so coming off 115 beats per minute, in a moment we're gonna be moving up to 160, but just before we do, I wanna mention that I do have some additional cymbals going on here. We've got some effects cymbals at play. I've got my stack, I've got my splash, got my China going, and I know that I do have 2 rack toms for this episode of What the Fill. Just try your best to swap out the pieces that you might not have with other pieces at your kit. You probably have like a ride cymbal. If you don't wanna use a stack on the right like I've got, just maybe double up on the China cymbal, stuff like that. Just do your best to sort of figure out how to perform the fill as close to how I'm playing it as possible, but using the different elements that you have in your kit. This is a very, very important skill to have, especially for me when I'm learning new covers, because most of the time I don't have an exact setup as to the artist who originally performed the track that I'm learning to play. So it's a really good idea to sort of figure out what textures can be swapped out for what elements you don't have. With that noted, let's move on up. We're now gonna hit 160 beats per minute. Coming off 160 beats per minute, we're getting very, very close to finishing out this episode and having you learned your 2 new triplet fills. The next tempo we're gonna go into is 200 beats per minute and will be the last tempo before hitting the final tempo of 230. I really hope that you've kept up to speed and got that fill down at 200 beats per minute. Now we're gonna make the final jump, but just before we do, on the screen for you right now are the timestamps for 115, 160, and 200 to jump back and re-rehearse those guys if you haven't gotten it down. If you have, let's make the jump. Here we go, 230 beats per minute for fill number 2 and what the fill number 8 on triplet fills perform for you right now. So there we have it, guys. We've come to the end of the video. I hope that you got both of those down. I want to say another huge thank you to all of the incredible people who support me on Patreon and make these videos happen. If you want to support this channel, you can find a Patreon link and a merch link in the description below. With that being said, I want to close out by encouraging all of you to maybe comment some suggestions for future lessons that we can talk about here on the channel. And lastly, of course, you can always connect with me further at my social media pages. There are links for you on the screen right now and in the description below. Thank you so much for checking out this video, and I will see you guys all very soon with something new.